Hey everyone, Ryan from Ebike Escape, and in this video we're going to be comparing the Aventon Aventure to the Rad Power Bike's RadRover 6 Plus, so let's get into it. Before we get into the comparison, if you are looking to purchase one of these electric bikes and you do find this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you use the link in the description before you make your purchase, as it makes videos like this one possible. Thanks in advance. And I have a big long list of things I'm going to talk about, and then towards the end of the video we're going to do some riding footage. And since I know there might be some very specific details that I miss out, if you own one of these electric bikes and you want to highlight a different comparison that I may have missed, please let me know and help others who are looking at both of these electric bikes. With that, let's take a closer look of our comparison. Here on the left we have the Aventon Aventure step through. This is the electric red, which is more of a cranberry red in my opinion. And then of course we have the gray high step model RadRover 6 Plus. One thing I wanted to point out is pricing. So both of these electric bikes are currently priced at $19.99. I am getting this video out right before Black Friday, and Aventon is currently offering $100 off their electric bikes, and you can actually get additional $100 to spend at a later date. So basically $200 off. Of course, that extra $100 off is going to be great if you're looking at some of these accessories. You can see we have the rear rack on there. And Rad Power Bikes has been running a sale throughout November, $300 off 2 electric bikes, and you can use the referral to get $100 off. And I do believe they are going to have a Black Friday sale as well. So that will be all updated in my Black Friday deals page, also linked within the description. But as I record this in November 2021, both of these electric bikes at their regular price is $19.99. Let's get started going through some of the comparisons. Now, these are all things that I have personally dug into. These are the more important things that I think you should consider if you're looking at these electric bikes. And if you're looking for me to give you an answer by the Aventon versus the Rad Power Bikes, sorry, I'm not going to be able to do that in this video. What I'm really trying to do is give you the information to help you make a decision that's right for you, because I do think both of these models are very compelling, and you can decide as we're going through the comparison what bike is really the better fat tire e-bike for you. First off, let's talk about weight. So the Aventon Aventure lists a weight capacity of 300 pounds, which is higher than what Rad Power Bike states by 25 pounds, so 275 pound capacity on the RadRover 6 Plus. Now, one of the big considerations is of course the electrical components. So the Aventon Aventure comes with a 48 volt 15 amp hour battery, and it is nicely tucked into the frame. As you can see here, it actually comes out of the side. I really think this is a super clean battery design. And of course, this integrated battery is much different than we'll find on the RadRover 6 Plus. Now on the Rad Power Bikes RadRover 6 Plus, we do have their new battery. So the RadRover 6 Plus was the first model that they introduced this semi-integrated battery. So this is a slightly smaller 48 volt 14 amp hour battery. So you are getting more capacity on the Aventon Aventure, and on the Aventure you're also getting that nicely integrated design. Though I am a pretty big fan of the semi-integrated design, I think it looks still pretty good, and I really love how this battery pops out, and it's super easy to handle with just one hand, and you can simply put it back in the bike like so. As far as charging goes, all Rad Power Bikes models come with a 2 amp charger, and you get a 3 amp charger with the Aventon Aventure, so going to charge your battery up slightly faster. Now, pretty much all electric bikes on the market today come with these slow chargers. Usually I see 2 amp chargers. I have seen a 4 amp charger, but usually 2 to 3 is most common. Let's talk about motors. This is obviously something that a lot of people pay close attention to. So the RadRover 6 Plus has a new motor in it from Rad Power Bikes. They basically improved upon the previous generation of motors on some of their other models for better hill climbing ability, but it is still a 750 watt peak motor. Now on the Aventon Aventure, we have a 750 watt motor that peaks, according to Aventon, at 1,130 watts. This is a Bafang branded rear hub motor. And another important distinction is the Aventon Aventure is advertised as a Class 3 electric bike, which means you can go into the app and change the top speed. Now in my riding, I did full reviews on both of these electric bikes, so you can check out those if you're interested in the hill climbing ability and things like that. Now the top speed I was personally able to hit on the Aventon Aventure was 26, maybe 27 miles per hour. I was testing this with the GPS during my full review. And the Rad Power Bike's RadRover 6 Plus comes shipped as a class 2 electric bike, and what that means, if you aren't familiar, is a top speed of 20 miles per hour with the throttle as well as pedal assist up to 20. Now when I did my throttle only test on the Aventon Aventure, the GPS speed was reading only 18 or 19 miles per hour. I did find that the Aventon display was reading higher than that, but the GPS speed was reading 18 or 19, whereas with the Rad Power Bikes, I was definitely hitting that 20 miles per hour. And of course, to remain within the current regulations, the throttle on the Aventon Aventure does not help you after that 20 mile per hour mark. After 20 miles per hour, you're on your own to hit that 26 or 27 miles per hour. So without a doubt, I would say the Aventon Aventure has a more powerful motor given that it peaks much higher. But I will say the RadRover 6 Plus with its new motor still has pretty impressive power, especially on the hill test. So it took these bikes both up the same hill. The RadRover hit a minimum speed on throttle only of 11 miles per hour, and the Aventon Aventure hit a minimum speed of 12. Now, of course, there's other factors. I rode these bikes on different days. You have tire pressure. So I would say hill climbing ability, throttle alone, they were actually pretty similar, which is a bit surprising. And you can see that footage for yourself in my full review. One thing to be aware of comparing these electric bikes is those throttles. The Rad Power Bikes, all their models actually come with right-hand twist grip throttles. I actually prefer the twist grip throttles. Other people prefer thumb throttles. It is a user preference. So just keep that in mind. And of course, with the Rad Power Bikes, you also have these faux leather grips. Now let's go ahead and take a close look at the Aventon Aventure throttle. So left-hand thumb throttle, I just find with the thumb throttles, if you are using them quite a bit, your thumb can get a little bit tired. And people who are perhaps coming from a motorcycle background definitely prefer the twist grip on the right side because that's obviously what they're used to. Now the Aventon Aventure does have these really nice Velo locking grips. Definitely prefer these to the faux leather grips that can sometimes move around after a lot of use on the Rad Power Bikes models. Since we're in the cockpit here, thought I would talk about the brakes. So both of these bikes have hydraulic disc brakes, much nicer than mechanical that come on many electric bikes. Of course, these are more premium electric bikes. Definitely expect hydraulic disc brakes on bikes in this price range. So we have Zoom hydraulic disc brakes on the Aventon Aventure, and on the Rad Power Bikes, RadRover 6 Plus, at least the one I have, these are nut hydraulic disc brakes. Now I find both of these brakes perform just fine. I don't think stopping power is an issue. However, I do think I prefer the feel. These just feel a little bit more solid to me compared to the Zoom hydraulic disc brakes. But again, both going to get the job done. I think it's just a very minor difference since I have been riding both of these electric bikes quite a bit. Now, one thing I should call out with Rad Power Bikes in particular is you might actually not see these same brakes on the model if you, for instance, purchase this electric bike, because there is currently a part shortage and we've seen parts being swapped out. Rad Power Bikes will swap out parts for other ones that are of similar quality, so no worries there, but just note that you might not get these exact brakes. Next, let's talk about the shifting. Definitely some differences here. So on the Aventon Aventure, we have 8 speeds, and this is a Shimano trigger shifter. Really like this shifter compared to the more entry-level component. Rad Power Bikes continues to offer the Shimano thumb shifter on the RadRover 6 Plus. Now again, this might be a little bit of a user preference thing, but I just find that the trigger shifters, in my opinion, just feel a little bit better. And this is definitely an entry-level shifter from Shimano. Now again, with the part shortage, you might not receive this exact shifter. In fact, on the Rad City 5 Plus that I reviewed, I did get a micro shift shifter, which was a trigger shifter, so just keep that in mind. And on the RadRover 6 Plus, we do have 7 speeds instead of 8. For gearing on the RadRover 6 Plus, we have 11 to 34 teeth, and this is a freewheel. Up front, we have a 42 tooth chainring. In the rear of the Aventon, we have 12 to 32 tooth, and this is a cassette. And then up front, we have a 46 tooth front chainring. But one of the things, of course, to keep in mind is when you go at higher speeds on class 3 electric bikes such as the Aventon Aventure, your legs just end up spinning a little bit more. So if you do want to travel at higher speeds, definitely look into replacing the front chainring. For derailleurs, on the Aventon Aventure, we have a Shimano Acera, again 8-speed. This is actually 2 steps up from the Shimano Altus that comes on the RadRover 6 Plus 7-speed here. Now, to be honest, I don't think many people are really going to notice the difference, but I did want to call it out because the Acera is technically a higher end component if you look at Shimano's hierarchy. But I find both of these are pretty easy to adjust with the barrel adjuster. Let's talk about some of the aesthetics across both of these electric bikes. I'll talk about some of the highlights. What I really like about the Aventon Aventure are these really nice metal fenders that come with the bike. They really look great. And it's cool that they also branded them. On the RadRover 6 Plus, we just have plastic fenders, and you can see they mount right here as opposed to having mounts right to the front fork. So I think look-wise, these metal fenders really look awesome on the Aventon Aventure, though both of these fenders are going to perform just fine. Let's talk quickly about the tires on these electric bikes. So the Rad Power Bikes RadRover 6 Plus comes with Kenda tires. In fact, both of these bikes come with Kenda tires. I really like the reflective sidewalls. I know some people don't prefer the look, but it adds visibility at night, and I really like that. And it's also worth pointing out the tread patterns. So the RadRover 6 Plus has a less aggressive tread pattern compared to the more knobby Aventon Aventure tires. Of course, this is going to perhaps be a pro or con depending on where you plan to ride. I think the Rad Power Bikes RadRover 6 Plus, those tires are going to ride a little bit nicer on the city, whereas these are going to definitely perform a little bit better off-road. Of course, you can always replace tires as they wear out. One thing that I also thought was worth mentioning, we did order the rear rack on the Aventon Aventure. And I have to say, after seeing the Rad Power Bikes accessories, you can see we have the front rack here. I find that the Rad Power Bikes accessories are maybe just a little bit higher quality. I like some of the additional thought that goes into it. For instance, if you order the rear rack for the RadRover 6 Plus, it has the Thule Yup window, so you can put a child seat on there. And it just feels a little bit more robust compared to this rack. Maybe a small thing to most people, as both rear racks are going to get the job done. I just find that the Rad Power Bikes racks are just a little bit more higher quality, though of course they also do cost a little bit more compared to the front and rear rack that you can purchase for the Aventon Aventure. Next, I wanted to talk about the front and rear lights. So both of these bikes come with integrated to the battery front and rear lights. Now, unique to the Aventon Aventure is the light is mounted right there to the handlebars, which means if you do purchase that front rack, you don't actually have to move the front light like you do on the Rad Power Bikes models. Now, my opinion on these front lights, I think the Aventon Aventure light is brighter, but it is a smaller beam compared to the RadRover 6 Plus. I think you'd be a little bit more visible given you have that nice ring around the front light. Now again, if you are riding a lot at night, I always recommend the removable and rechargeable lights that mount right to your handlebars. Really like that they have flashing modes. So about what I would expect as far as front lights go with all of the electric bikes that I have reviewed. Now I will say on the Aventon Aventure, I really like this integrated light right into the frame. It is only on the left side, which is a bit of a bummer, but this is definitely brighter compared to the one on the RadRover 6 Plus, which I'll show you here in just a second. But when you hit the brake light, that rear light does go on. Now on the RadRover 6 Plus, you do have the tail light now built into the fender, but I will say it is definitely not as bright as that Aventon Aventure light. And when you press the brake levers, that light does go brighter. Let's move on to the display. This is definitely something I wanted to call out. as a difference between these electric bikes. So Aventon does have their own custom display on the Aventure, and what's really cool is they have an app where you can actually pair the bike with your phone and you can access a bunch of advanced functions. In fact, that's actually where you go ahead and override the top speed. Now, I do like the controls over here on the left. You do have a dedicated power button and light button. Of course, you have your 5 modes of pedal assist, and you also have additional information shown here. Trip CO2 reduced, trip trees saved, CO2 reduced, some trees saved, trip distance, odometer, average speed, max speed, trip time, calories burnt. And I do find that this display is pretty easy to read during the daylight, and you have a percentage meter for the battery in the top right hand side. And again, one of the really neat things is I feel like Aventon is pushing the envelope, having a dedicated app. Really like that. I think a lot of companies are going to have to follow suit eventually, and it's probably a sign of things to come related to the Aventon app and the customizations that you can do within. All right, let's move on to the RadRover 6 Plus. So these are the new dual displays that come on the Plus models. I will say these displays are definitely more simple. So perhaps if you just want a simple display, you might actually prefer these new displays from Rad Power Bikes. Now, I do find that the left display is a little bit more dim than the center display because you can only adjust the brightness on the center display. But what I really like about this Rad Power Bikes display is you have your speed front and center, you have your wattage at the bottom, trip odometer, trip time, and you can hold the plus and minus pedal assist button at the same time and get the current time as well as the odometer. Now, there are some advanced settings. Check out some of my other videos if you're interested in that. But what I appreciate about this display is it's super simple. There's not more information than you need. But of course, if you like customizations, maybe you prefer that Aventon display. Now, on the control here, what's really nice is you have your pedal assist up and down right here, and it actually shows right here, and I think that's pretty user-friendly. You have your battery capacity here, 10 bars, and you do have a dedicated power button as well as a light button over here on the left side. Really like that. Makes it much easier, especially if you have gloves on, to push all of these buttons. And one small thing I'll point out here, on the RadRover 6 Plus, you get this included bell. Now, of course, you can purchase a bell for the Aventon Aventure if you'd like one. And if you're noticing some of these other accessories on these electric bikes, be sure to check out our electric bike accessory list. For instance, for these mirrors, those are on there if you are interested in outfitting your electric bike. We will be doing separate accessory videos eventually for these bikes. And lastly, on the Aventon Aventure display, you do have a USB port tucked right underneath the display right here. Now, you can get a USB for the Rad Power Bikes, but it is a dongle now, and that does cost extra. All right, let's talk about the suspension quickly. So on the Rad Power Bikes RadRover 6 Plus, they did opt for a 60 millimeter travel front fork, whereas the Aventon Aventure has 80 millimeters, and this is a zoom front fork. To be honest, riding these electric bikes, I can't really tell a difference, though there's no doubt spec-wise that the RadRover 6 Plus does have less travel in the front suspension, so I wanted to point it out. As far as seats go, you have a very standard seat on the RadRover 6 Plus. Of course, if you want something a little bit more cushy, you can check out our electric bike accessories list. But one thing I will point out is the Aventon branded seat. Now, this is a little bit wider as well, but of course it's going to be personal preference if you want something more comfortable. I just like that they have a branded seat. I think it really completes this nice looking package. And finally, I wanted to talk about a few things related to the frames. One super unique thing about Aventon, and this is across all of their models, is they sell their models in different sizes. So you can see here, we have the medium large step through frame here, but they do sell a small medium step through frame. And if you opt for the high step Aventon Aventure, it comes in small, medium, large. Now, compared to Rad Power Bikes, they took a one-size-fits-all approach to the high-step model. So this is the only high-step frame that you can buy, but they also sell a step-through bike. Now, looking at the geometry specs on both of these websites are going to help decide what bike might fit you the best. But I personally think that Rad Power Bikes did a great job at designing these electric bikes, making them accessible to a wider range of heights. And definitely if you're on the shorter end, I would look at the step-through version of the RadRover 6 Plus, though I definitely can't ignore the fact that Aventon sells specific sizes so you can get the size that's going to fit you the best. And since we're talking about frames, I should also point out the colors. As I mentioned, this is the electric red Aventon Aventure, but they do sell several different colors. The color choices do vary on the step-through versus the high-step version. I believe it's 3 different colors for each model, and they offer some very unique colorways. You can see the accents around this frame. It just looks very sharp. Now, Rad Power Bikes with the RadRover 6 Plus, they only offer this gray black color in the high step version, though if you get the step through, you also have the option of choosing this white and gray color, and they do offer the black gray in the step through as well. Next, I need to talk about the differences of the welds on these frames. So Aventon uses hydroformed frames, and that leads to very clean welds. You can see that it pretty much disappears into the frame here, looks super clean. Really, it's hard to overstate just how nice the Aventon Aventure looks with this paint job, compared to what you see on most electric bikes are extruded frames. So you can see that the welds are just a little bit more noticeable here on the RadRover 6 Plus, though I do think it looks pretty clean. But of course you can see the weld points around the frame a little bit easier compared to the Aventon Aventure. Okay, next let's get to some riding footage. We'll put these bikes next to each other and see what they can do, and also try to get my wife's perspective on both of these electric bikes. So we're going to do a little race here in just a second, just to have some fun and compare these bikes a little bit further. But I have my wife here, and she's going to give us a little bit of her perspective on these two bikes. And obviously no two people are the same. People have different preferences when it comes to e-bikes. So Allie, maybe you want to share your thoughts on why you like each of these bikes.
I like different aspects on each bike. For overall look, definitely I think this bike looks, quote, cooler. The color is nice. I like the integrated battery. It overall just looks more sleek. As for the display, I think this bike, the Aventure, it's just a little bit too busy for me. I like a simple screen. The Rad has the two displays now with the battery on the left and the display in the middle. That to me seems much easier to look at and read. The grips, I like the palm rest on the Rad. Just seems more comfortable for me to ride. The throttle, I much prefer a twist throttle over a thumb throttle. So the Rad for me would be much more comfortable to use that throttle. Overall power, the Rad seems like pedal assist 1, you go a bit slower. Pedal assist 2, a little bit faster. Compared to the Aventure, pedal assist 1 to me feels like it's much more of a takeoff than the Rad. I love a bell on a bike, and the Rad comes with one, so that definitely is a perk for me. The light on the Aventure, I know there's a lot of talk about this. One side on the light just seems goofy to me. Just put a light on both sides or in the middle. And sometimes I like to go places quickly, and for that I would take the Aventure because the max speed is higher.
Okay, with that, we are going to test out both of these electric bikes, and we'll see which one is faster off the line.
Throttle only.
Throttle only. And just note that unfortunately the RadRover 6 Plus only has about 40% battery, and the Aventon Aventure is almost full. Here we go, throttle only. 3, 2, 1, go. Very similar.
Yep.
The Aventon is pulling ahead a little bit. That's perhaps not surprising. All right. Cool. Yeah. So we did get up to about 20 miles per hour there. We are going to go ahead and switch bikes here. And you should be aware that my wife is currently pregnant, so technically she weighs a little bit more than me, so you should take that into consideration.
Love the step through though.
And I'm going to go ahead and assume that I'm going to beat Allie on this just because the Aventon does seem faster, but we'll do this anyway. Ready? 3, 2, 1, throttle. All right. So I think we can say without a doubt, the Aventon Aventure has a more powerful motor than the RadRover 6 Plus. Not surprising, 750 watt peak, 1,130 watt peak. But what's really cool on both of these electric bikes is because they are fat tire electric bikes, they're both the same amount of fun.
Yep.
All right. Nice job. Hey, don't leave me hanging. Yeah. I hope you found this video helpful. Again, if you're looking to purchase either of these electric bikes, I don't think you can go wrong with either. I hope this helps make your decision easier. If you are looking at purchasing one, I'd really appreciate it if you use the links in the description. It really helps me out and makes videos like this one possible. And of course, if you have other things that I may have overlooked or missed, please let us know in the comments and help out other people who are considering these electric bikes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.